My name is Pavel Kolesnikov. I'm a pianist. I'm from Russia, live in London. And I'm very much looking forward to this concert at the Single I'm doing on the 29th of March. I came to London in 2011 after I've been in Moscow Conservatory for a few years. And that was a rather spontaneous decision. I knew I wanted to go somewhere outside of Russia to continue my studies. I was not quite sure where, and it just so happened that I went to London. I liked Norma Fisher very much, and decided to go and study with her for a few years. After studying in London, and in fact, at the same time as I was studying in London, I was working also with Maria João Pires in Waterloo, and that left a very big influence on me, of course. It was a very special time together with her. I also met Elizabeth Leonskaya sometime after that, and although I never really had a proper class with her, we became very good friends, and I attended many performances and have been around her, and that also has been a very, very big noticeable influence. I think that the most important things that you learn as an artist are purely artistic, and because of that it's very difficult to translate them into words, really. And also those things you don't usually learn through lessons, you learn through being with a person, through the personal energy exchange, something like that. And this is what I definitely had with Maria João. We had lessons, of course, but during those lessons she often wouldn't even say much. But just by feeling her energy, by listening to her voice, you learn something very important. And I was trying many times to put it into words, and maybe in case of Maria João, it's in a way some way of connecting to the audience, this very direct interaction with the audience through music that I learned from her. But what was the moment when I learned it? I don't know. It just somehow happened while I was spending time with her. In the last few years, I had this very big project going on, the collaboration with Therese de Keersmaker on the Goldberg Variations by Bach. And that has become, well, something really important in my artistic life. And it also came a little bit unexpectedly, because in fact I was never considering about the possibility to play this piece. I revered it. I grew up, as so many people, with a Gould recording, and I just did not feel really that I could add something to it. But then Aunt-Therese reached out to me and she proposed to me to work on this project, and I was incredibly tempted, because that would mean that I would work completely outside of my comfort zone. I never worked with a dancer before, and I really admire Aunt-Therese's work, and I thought that would be an opportunity for me also to learn this piece really in depth, and to learn to understand it, and to find my way into it and into the music of Bach, because I also did not perform at that point. I didn't perform Bach on stage much. I only played it to myself. So that was a really big decision, in fact, to take, and a big commitment, and it definitely paid off, because of the way we structured the work with Aunt-Therese, which required so much preparation, and also allowed much more time than I would normally allow myself to develop the work organically. And of course I also recorded the piece, and I played it with Aunt Teresa and without Aunt Teresa, so it became this threefold project for me, where I created something that stays, I created something with Aunt Teresa which is also quite stable, because it's an existing choreography, you cannot change it that much, but also I keep playing it and the piece keeps changing. It's a very interesting way of working, and I've never done it before, of course. And it's just very interesting to see how the work develops, where it started from, how it was documented, and how it develops now. There's some people that I really would have, I regret that I never had an opportunity to meet. One of them is a musician, a pianist who influenced me a lot, Sviatoslav Richter. I read some books about him, some interviews, in fact, the interview books about him when I was around maybe 16, and that really changed, in many ways, really changed my perception of music and what music can be, and how far one person can go making music and art not only part of their life, but their life essentially. So he had a very big influence on me, and I said it in the beginning, sometimes I find it hard distinguishing between the real mentors and the mentors that I myself chosen. So Richter is definitely one of those people. I would be very interested to meet him if that had been possible. Sometimes I feel very related to Chopin. Schubert is also one of my most favorite composers. Tchaikovsky to a certain extent, but really when you start working, when you believe in someone's work and you start learning it, you get sucked in, really, and then you end up having very strong affinity with those people, at least for a little while. The only interesting thing is that, or unusual thing about that, is that I never felt that with Bach. And I'm not saying it in a negative sense, it's just a very different kind of connection I found. Whenever I play a piece by a composer, I can definitely feel the person behind. Sometimes the feeling is overwhelming. For instance, when you play Beethoven, it's almost like the person itself is there, and you're confronted by this spirit. And it's similar with any composer I can think of from any time, starting from early Baroque. I didn't play music earlier than early Baroque. And to the most contemporary composers, you can always feel the person behind. But with Bach, I don't have this feeling of the person. I have a feeling that I'm dealing with very pure and very intense music. But judging on his music, I have no idea what kind of person he is. I'm sometimes asking myself, and I am amazed at how vague he remains. Despite the precision and the absolute perfection of expression in his music. So that's what sets him apart for me. I love my time away from the piano. And I always think it's such a shame that life is so short and that we don't have, let's say, 1,000 years to first perfect the art of playing piano, then for another 100 years compose music, then maybe do something else, pottery, write a book, or do some design, or or some other things. I sometimes feel a little bit caught in this situation where I really love music and doing what I do, and I cannot really imagine not being a musician, but I also would really love to do other things. So at least as a matter of hobbies, I like doing that. I like doing photography. I'm very interested in fashion, generally in art and art history of any kind, and love traveling, love seeing my friends, and I have one quite unusual hobby is I'm interested in perfume and the art of perfumery, the history of perfumery. I have quite a big collection of vintage perfumes from, let's say, the first half of the 20th century is the most interesting period for me. But also I'm very interested in what is happening these days in this area. So with all that, you don't have that much free time left.